What's up everybody, Brian Tong here, and what is the latest news in the Apple world? Well, iOS 26.2 is expected to arrive sometime in the middle of December, so this video is what you can expect. Now, it's the final major iOS launch of the year, and it could drop within the next week, so let's show you the new features that are currently in the iOS 26.2 Beta 3. And this isn't going to be a major update, but there are enough useful features worth showcasing. So first off, we already know in iOS 26.1 that you can change the look of liquid glass between Apple's preferred clear look that is more transparent versus that tinted look that makes things a lot easier to read and increases the opacity and adds more contrast. So now on your lock screen with iOS 26.2, there's a slider that allows you to adjust the liquid glass transparency of the clock so it can be more clear or more tinted with that look that we've seen before. Again, click on the clock and then go back and forth and play around with it. This is cool. You can also choose solid, but I like that we have some options to mess around with. Now, a new subtle feature is also reminder alarms. When you create a reminder, you now have the option to make it urgent, which will have an alarm go off when that reminder is due. You can set it whenever you want, and it will have the standard snooze and stop options. Now, since we're also still talking about alarms, the sleep score has been adjusted by Apple to better reflect what they believe how people might feel after a night's sleep. So here's the breakdown from Mac Rumors with the changes for what the new scores look like. And surprisingly, I've been hitting between okay and high, but I'll never get close to very high. I'm not even sure how anyone can do that. That just seems unattainable. But I do like the fact that I don't have to wear my Apple Watch to sleep, because wearing something now like my Ringcon Air 2 ring, really thin, it still collects all that data, and I'll still see a sleep score for that night on my Apple Watch, no watch needed. So love that too. Also, iOS 26.2 has a new AirDrop feature that is being teased. So if you go into your settings, then General, then AirDrop, you'll see a new option at the bottom that will let you generate a one-time AirDrop code for file sharing with someone who isn't in your contacts list, and it supports a file exchange between that person for a 30-day period. Now, it isn't active yet on this build, but it could come in useful, especially if you're doing a production or a short-term project that requires sending assets back and forth, and then you'll never see that person again after the project, unless you do. Now, the podcast app supports 3 new features, including automatically created chapters, the ability to see mentions of other podcasts and follow them from the transcript, and quick access to the links shared in a podcast. I'm curious how this automatic chapter marking will work for me with my Apple Bits XL podcast, but I've already enjoyed the transcription and just being able to jump around a podcast depending on what I see in the transcript. Also, live translation for the AirPods is expanding to the EU. In my review of the AirPods Pro, I was let down by the fact that it really only worked in a quiet and very controlled environment, so we're going to have to see how that changes in the future updates, but it is coming to the EU. Plus, Apple Music now supports offline lyrics in iOS 26.2, so you don't need to be connected to Wi-Fi or cellular anymore to see the lyrics to your favorite song. I would say that would have come in real handy back in the day when I was singing Too Close by Next, and I had no idea what it really meant, right? You're making it hard for... you can look out the rest of that for yourself. Yeah, it's called Google. And also, if you're in Japan, you might get the biggest change to iOS 26.2, which will enable users in that region to download apps from alternative app stores and replace Siri with a different personal assistant. Come on, as if Japan wasn't already one of the most amazing places in the world. Now iOS 26.2 can do that in Japan? Yo, get my ticket, I'm flying out there. So those are some of the significant features coming to iOS 26.2 sometime in the next week or so. And then the next revamp to Siri and Apple Intelligence is expected next year sometime in spring, but that could be pushed out further to WWDC 2026. We'll see. And we also might at least get a glimpse of the first beta of iOS 26.3 before the end of the year. At least historically, that has happened over the past 4 years. Normally, it's more of an update to internal improvements and bug fixes and not any major front-facing features. All right, let's take a moment to thank the sponsor of this video, the Nothing Ear 3. The Nothing Ear 3 has always had one of the slickest designs that we've seen for wireless earbuds, with their iconic transparent design aesthetic that has evolved and now brings even more features. A big challenge is that most wireless earbuds at this mid-range level can't quite get both sound quality and call clarity right, but the Nothing Ear 3 pulls this off, delivering more than you'd expect. Now I've got these two pinball machines with me with the TV on as well, and this is more than just a noisy environment, but this is where the super mic comes in. Now I'll press and hold the talk button on the charging case to activate the super mic feature. And the Nothing Ear 3 uses an independent microphone array and wind noise algorithms to effectively block out environmental noise.
All right, everybody, so I am here at this intersection right now. There's cars coming by, and I'm talking to you directly through the Nothing Ear 3s, but I'm going to use the super mic here. I'm going to hold this down, and then I'm going to start talking to it right now to see if you can actually hear the difference with these cars passing by. And I'm going to take it off, and then I'm back to using the Nothing Ear 3s. So what do you think?
Now for mid-range earbuds, these also have a great balanced EQ, and you can hear the details in audio for a more immersive audio experience. The Nothing Ear 3 features a 12mm dynamic driver and supports LDAC and high-res audio with a more detailed low end and crystal clear highs. So I'm talking about music you can listen to, and movies, and any media content. Quality sound matters, and you'll get just that. Plus, with the Nothing X app, you can adjust the 8-band EQ to your exact preferences. Now you can get some great call performance and full sounding audio with the Nothing Ear 3 in a really damn cool design and a solid mid-range earbud option. So check out the link in the description to get $20 off your purchase and don't miss out. All right, let's get back to the stories, and we all know how Apple completely dropped the ball with Apple Intelligence, and even long before that, right? Their failure to bring a competent Siri, which has looked so pedestrian and really conditioned many people to not use it that much on their iPhone. And after spending extensive time for me with the Google Pixel 10 Pro and Gemini and of course other phones, I've known this, but it's just more clear than ever how weak Siri has become. And it's easily, that's been a bad Apple for years. Now it's almost trained us to dumb down how we use our phones and what we expect our phones to do, especially compared to what else is out there. And what's been holding people back? Let's be honest, the power of the Apple ecosystem, the power of that lock-in. Now, the man who was hired to fix Siri, Apple's AI chief, John Giannandrea, was poached from Google and hired by Apple back in 2018. Apple announced that he will now be stepping down from his position and retiring in the spring of 2026, and he will serve as an advisor between now and 2026. Now, I do remember at the time of his hire, like being genuinely excited about the potential for Siri to finally do something meaningful. But year after year, nothing changed, nothing significant. And every WWDC, I'd say, this is the year Siri needs to step up. And it didn't happen year after year. Now, Siri finally got multiple timers in late 2023. Like, that's how long it took. And then Apple Intelligence happened. And it was a complete flop, right? The reports are that Apple will be partnering with Google's Gemini to be the foundation for their next generation of Siri and Apple Intelligence. And we'll have to see how that all plays out, because Apple at one time had the smartest smartphone with the iPhone 4S, but at the moment it's now light years behind what Android is doing. But I think there are some bigger things happening behind the scenes that we don't see externally that are also going to be big challenges for Apple moving forward. Now, we've heard multiple reports of the mass exodus of multiple key top-level execs from Apple's AI team that are leaving for Meta and others with multi-million-dollar compensation packages that Apple has shown it's just not willing to match, and it doesn't mind if they leave. But you know who else is poaching top-level talent from Apple as well? OpenAI. Yeah, that's the company that Johnny Ive has joined forces with to build their next generation of products from his design firm, Lovefrom. That also means many people at all different levels of design and hardware engineering from Apple have left for OpenAI's new device efforts. In fact, in the past month, Bloomberg's Mark Gurman reports that OpenAI has hired more than 40 people in the past month for their devices group, and many of those engineers have come from Apple. Even you look at a rising star internally at Apple, Abhidhar Chaudhry, who was featured as that voice that introduced the iPhone Air, he has left 2 months later for a different role at another AI startup. So it feels like the allure of working for Apple doesn't hold the same appeal as it once did, and the exodus of talent is really backing that up. So the question is, how will that affect them in the long run? We know that only time will tell, but it can't be a good thing. And we will have to see how this all plays out years down the road, right? Look, Samsung just announced their Z Trifold that opens up to a 10-inch tablet, and they're just pushing what's possible with foldables here in the US. Apple foldable, first foldable coming sometime next year. Now, 2026 is expected to be a big year for Apple with, yes, the introduction of that first ever foldable iPhone. We are expecting to finally see their entry into the smart home, a cohesive, coherent push there, and we could even see the Apple glasses, right? Apple's first attempt at a competitor to the entry-level Meta Ray-Ban glasses. Reports claim that we could get the unveiling of the Apple glasses and even a sneak preview, even if they won't ship until 2027. But we know Meta is really owning that space for wearable, low-tech, but techy enough glasses right now. We also have their glasses with a display in them. It could be a really interesting 2026 with all the new product categories Apple will be getting into. But what will really be the most important piece of this puzzle is their foundation, right? Especially with their rollout of Apple Intelligence and what it means for all of their devices. Again, we will just have to wait and see how this all plays out. But I think that's why 2026 for Apple is going to be really interesting, really important, but also how these other companies around them are pushing just as hard while they're really playing a little bit of catch up. All right, everybody, that is going to do it for this video. If you like what you see, give me that thumbs up, subs up, and hit that notification bell ding, to get all my latest videos when they drop. And if you want more of that Apple goodness, you can check out my weekly Apple Bits XL audio podcast with the latest stories and special guests. Plus, you can support all my content with an ad-free version of the podcast, early access to my content, and exclusive content at patreon.com/BrianTong. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next video. Peace and love.